Hey everyone, my name is Chelsea. Welcome to Little Mountain Ranch and welcome back to my kitchen. Today we are going to be making tomato soup. When I mentioned this in one of my previous videos, I think I was harvesting tomatoes or something like that from the high tunnel, I got a ton of requests for this recipe. So this has been a recipe I've been playing around with for the last couple of years, and I think I have it down to something that is absolutely delicious and super easy to make. So the first thing that we're gonna do is move that pot because we need a fresh one. This recipe is enough to feed, how many people am I gonna feed today? 10 people. But it freezes really well. You can put it in the fridge for leftovers for the next day. It's so good, it'll probably get eaten up really quickly. So don't let the size of the recipe scare you off. I'm just gonna give you the base recipe for tomato soup, and then you can add things to it as you wish. You can add things like carrots to it, squash to it, even chunks of potato to it. But I'm just gonna give you the base of it today, which is actually the way that we cook it most of the time. All right, this is where sharing recipes becomes a little bit tricky for me because I'm a little bit of this, a little bit of that kind of cook, and everything that I make tastes slightly different each time that I do it. So it's a little bit hard to share a recipe with you, but the basic idea will be in this video and then you can kind of take it from there. I'm gonna use about this many tomatoes, and as you can see, I have all different kinds of tomatoes in here, from plum tomatoes, little tiny cherry tomatoes, and then some larger tomatoes. I find that variety is really what makes this soup absolutely delicious. I'm also going to be adding 2 onions to it. This one is actually a little bit big, so let's go with 2 smaller onions to it and 2 bulbs of garlic. So we like a lot of garlic, so you can adjust this according to your taste. But garlic, we're going to also add a little bit of basil, fresh basil, to this soup. Again, that's not necessary. You can take it out if you want, as well as some parsley. So the first thing that we're gonna do is, oh, and we also need butter, lots of butter. And I use about 1/4 cup or a little bit more of butter in the bottom of my pan and get that heating up on the stove while I get my onions ready. Okay, so you can just roughly chop up your onions. You don't have to get too carried away because all of this is gonna get pureed. I like to caramelize my onions and my garlic a little bit. One of the other things you can do is actually roast your onions and your garlic in the oven before adding them to the soup. You can actually do the same thing with your tomatoes as well, which adds an extra richness to it. But if you are busy and you don't have time to do that, you can just do it the way that I'm doing it. So just like so, right into the pan with all of that delicious butter. Same thing for the garlic. I like to serve this with grilled cheese sandwiches, that's the best. But you can also grate some cheese in it and eat it with crackers or even just toast. And this garlic has a little bit of heat to it. So I just chop these up, and like I said, you can play around with the amount of garlic that you use in this. Oh, this garlic is hot. Oh my goodness. Whenever you are cooking with onions and garlic, always cook your onions up first and then add your garlic after, because garlic tends to cook much faster than onions, and you'll end up burning it if you don't do that. Okay, let's grab a spoon. You can cook those down till they're translucent, or you can take them a little bit further and caramelize them, which is just when they start getting brown a little bit, when the sugars start browning. I'm gonna chop up a little bit of these herbs to add to this, so maybe a handful of herbs to the soup. Again, this is all to taste. While that is cooking down, we're going to get our tomatoes all prepped up, and I've already started here. You can see they're just chopped up. I just chop them up roughly, trying to keep them all around the same size so they cook down at the same rate. So around this size. And then I just throw in all of my cherry tomatoes and my plum tomatoes like so, in whole. Now you have a couple of options with this. You can run this all through a food mill if you want to remove skins and seeds, but I run mine through my Vitamix after, and we just eat it with the skins and seeds and everything. And Nobody's ever complained about it. I always like to remove skins if I am making, say, canned products, because I don't like the little chunks of skin, and it is safer to remove the skin when you are canning. But because we're eating this fresh, it's not a big deal. And because I'm gonna puree it with the Vitamix, you can't even tell. So these ones, and make sure you cut off any bad spots, of course. Look at the inside of that tomato. This one's called a pink Berkeley tie-dye. Isn't that beautiful? Okay, dump the rest of these in there. But you can see those are all cooked down and nice and soft now. So now what I'm gonna do is take these tomatoes and put them right into this with the onions. And give them a little stir so that the onions and the garlic do not burn on the bottom. And then, now I'm gonna cover these up and let them cook down until they're soft. So I thought while that soup was cooking down, I would show you how we make our grilled cheese sandwiches. Let's move that over there and this away so you can actually see. I know everybody has a different method, and I always find it interesting how other people do things. I'm using a sourdough coconut flour bread that I buy from a bakery called Just Pies down in Penticton, BC. If you want a gluten-free option that's delicious, I highly recommend them. I always grate my cheese for grilled cheese sandwiches. It just makes the cheese go a little bit further. Butter the bread. I have seen people butter both sides of the bread. I do not do that. I only butter one side of the bread, but I do like to layer it on nice and thick. One of the other things that I love to do just to add a little bit of extra yumminess to my grilled cheese sandwiches is fry a little bit of garlic on the pan, a little bit of minced garlic. And then there's the pan tastes like garlic, all the butter sizzles in with the garlic. And then I add a little smear of that garlic on the inside of my grilled cheese sandwich. And I think I'm actually gonna do that today since I have this garlic, whoops, sitting at the ready. So I just mince up my garlic and put a little bit of butter in my pan. Turn it on over medium heat, and my tomatoes are just about finished. So I'm going to take the lid off now and let some of the extra water boil off there. Take my garlic over, put it on my fry pan. The tomatoes are just about finished here. So I don't want to fry up my sandwiches until the soup is finished. You can use an immersion blender like this. I just find that this doesn't make it quite as smooth as the Vitamix blender does, but if you don't have one, then you can use one of these. You could even use a food processor. Get that garlic sizzling on the pan. All right, whenever you're gonna blend anything hot, of course, be super duper careful. So I just put the soup into here, into my blender. And I do this in smaller batches, and I'll show you why in just a second. My blender has a hot soup setting on it, so I'm gonna set it to that, put in the top. And let it go. I forgot to mention the milk or cream. So this is about 6 cups of soup, and I'm going to add 2 cups of the milk and the cream to bring it up to 8. The reason that I add my milk to my tomato soup in the mixer and then blend it again is because oftentimes the milk will curdle when you're adding it to a high acidity soup like this. So this gets rid of that. It just blends it all up together. Running out of space here on my counter. I dump this into a new pot. Oh, it smells so good. So that I can do the next batch. My soup is a little bit more yellow today with all those gorgeous yellow tomatoes. So now comes the taste test. That is just about perfect. I'm just gonna add a little bit of brown sugar, so maybe a couple of tablespoons of brown sugar just to cut the acidity a little bit. And I like to add some nice fresh ground pepper, but any old pepper will do. And then I leave the salt for each individual person to add to theirs, depending on what they want. Oh, you guys, this smells so good. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Okay, now we will get the grilled cheese going. I'm going to take a little bit of my garlic that I fried up here, put it inside the sandwich. This is one of my favorite lunches to have. Then I'm going to sprinkle some cheese on, and I personally don't mind having a little bit of cheese on the fry pan because I like it cooked nice and crispy like that. So some cheese, add as much as you want, as little as you want, and then bread on top, and then we'll fry that up. Looks good already. And while that is frying, I'm gonna get a bowl cooling. Oh, it smells so good. Doesn't that look delicious? And add a little bit more salt and pepper to the top. And while that is frying, I am going to try to get ahead of this mess because I have a ton of tomatoes to can. We ended up getting that frost that I was talking about in my last video. It got to -2 degrees, which I think is 30 degrees Fahrenheit. And we even had ice on the inside of the high tunnel, a little bit on the plastic. So that was a little nerve-wracking. So we ended up going and picking most of the tomatoes that were ready or close to ready. I have left some on the vine with a plug-in heater, and I think that they will be okay. All right, should we give it a try? Oh my goodness. I'll spare you the sounds of me chewing. If you love tomato soup, then I really encourage you to try making your own. It is super easy and incredibly delicious. You can use canned tomatoes from the grocery store if that's what you have, your own canned tomatoes from your pantry. You can use fresh tomatoes, you can use tomatoes you buy from the grocery store. It doesn't matter, it will taste good either way. If you do have the option to have a variety of different kinds of tomatoes, then I would suggest that because it does make it a little bit more rich and complex, but either way it's good. I hope you have an absolutely fabulous day, you guys, and I'll see you again next time. Bye.